What's up, guys? We are back for another NECA Predator review, taking a look at another older figure that I got a hold of not too long ago. We're taking a look at the only non-Predator Predator figure in that recent haul, and that would be the Thermal Vision Dutch figure. This is the only Dutch figure I've ever looked at, ever owned, so I'm definitely interested to take a look at this guy. He comes packaged in the standard NECA blister card style packaging. You can see him there in the bubble. We've got a Predator on that backer card, logo down on the bottom, and then the back has got product shot, a bit of a write-up, and then a cross-sell for other figures in that wave. So let's do it. Let's pull this guy out and take a look. And here he is out of the package, our Thermal Vision Dutch figure from Predator. So of course this is Arnold Schwarzenegger done up in a just beautiful looking translucent green figure with, let's face it, a pretty stellar paint job. All things considered, this guy is so much more exciting than I ever expected it to be. This is my first Dutch figure, and I do not think it's going to be my last, but this is definitely one that I just really am excited to play around with. He's so much more versatile than I had initially given him credit for, just based on never having messed around with one, and frankly, I didn't expect it to be this fun. Of course, I do love translucent figures, so he's already got that going for him, but he is surprisingly well articulated, very, very mobile. So I'm really excited to dig into this guy. So of course we're going to start with articulation, and let me show you how this guy moves around. So we'll start at the head, and you have got him on a ball, so he goes up and he goes down, side to side, full rotation. Arms go out, they swivel. You don't have a bicep swivel, but you do have a single jointed hinge, and then you've got elbow rotation. You've got ball hinges at the wrist, so you've got a little bit of wiggle room, and then swivel. You've got a diaphragm cut. You've got quite a bit of movement side to side as far as tilt back and forth. There's also a waist cut down there. The legs go out, they kick forward, they kick back. The crotch piece is a little flimsy to allow that movement, and then you can kind of wiggle around in there. Got to kind of break that joint up, got a little wiggle room up there, and then you have got a single rotating hinge at the knee, and then you've got the telltale kind of ball joints for NECA stuff, so rocker side to side, hinge and swivel, rotation, the whole deal. So he really does move really well. I've gotten this guy into some far more interesting poses than I ever expected, so he is quite articulated, more so again than I had originally anticipated. He just does a lot of stuff really well. All the joints are really fluid, they move really nicely, no tightness, no real stiffness outside of maybe the thigh cuts on this guy, but the rest of him, he just moves so nicely. Everything just kind of flows on him, and you can get him into some really fantastic positions. Of course, let's face it, the big draw for this guy is, of course, the paint job and the actual color scheme. Not specifically the paint, but the plastics used. It does, of course, have a great sculpt, but with a lot of stuff like this with translucent plastics, a lot of times that stuff is kind of lost. It's really hard to see some of those finer details because there frankly aren't as many paint applications in a way that would bring the sculpt to life. But you can see a lot of what's going on here. So you've got the bare arms, you've got the bare chest, but he does have the vest. And he, of course, has got kind of the rubbery vest here. You got the pouches all over it. Of course, fully translucent. You've got a fully translucent sheath for his knife. For his gun, you've got a holster over here. And then you've got the pants. A lot of wrinkles, a lot of sculpted details. So this is definitely a figure that has likely been produced before, but just redone in this particular color scheme. And then, of course, on the back, there is no paint. Otherwise, you would have a lot of issues with light bleeding through. It just, frankly, wouldn't happen. So that's why there's no paint on the back side. But you do have, I mean, just a ton of paint job on the front. Tons of reds and yellows to bring out that thermal detail. And I think as haphazard as some of this may look at first glance, it definitely is very calculated. It's where it's supposed to be. There is a lot of hot spots all over the body. I think it works really well to convey the idea that he is, you know, maybe partially covered in mud like we see in the movie, but not fully, so the Predator can see some of that heat bleeding through. And you can definitely tell when you're looking at this guy that this is absolutely Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you know that if this was a fully painted sample, that it would definitely look just like him, which we have seen with other figures from NECA. They have the likeness, they have the sculpt, they have that paint work down. This is just a different iteration of that character, and frankly, the translucent stuff always does it for me, and honestly, the thermal vision stuff is really doing it for me lately. You know, this is the second figure like this that I have looked at in recent history, and it's just so much more interesting to me than I had ever expected. I am a big translucent figure junkie, but having this stuff in hand, it's just so much more cool and more interesting than when you just see pictures of it. So these guys really do a great deal of justice once you have them in hand. They aren't nearly as cool to look at on the other side of the screen or from within a package, but once you've got them out and playing around with them, you can see that there is a lot of cool stuff going on here, and definitely a lot of sculpt and paint work to be seen up close. Now, as far as accessories goes, we do have a handful for this figure, and they've all been on him the entire time because, frankly, I was just not interested in taking them out this time around. So we've got the translucent green pistol, which is nicely done. A lot of sculpt on that, of course, you know, not too much, but enough to make it look realistic. And we've got a translucent green knife here, both of which have a sheath and a holster on the figure. And then you have got the translucent green rifle here that is able to be holstered around his neck across his back, as you've seen throughout the video so far, with a little kind of flimsy strap here. A lot of sculpt on this guy, you know, very, very candy looking, very Jolly Rancher-ish, but these guys look great. It goes along with the theme of the figure, and it just works. Everything as far as the weaponry really flows on this figure. It adds to the whole translucent aspect of this guy, and just cool stuff all around. So at the end of the day, this guy is just a fun figure. That's really all that matters to me when it comes to this particular version of this figure, is that it's fun. It looks great. It's got a nice sculpt, fantastic paint job. The articulation is more than I had ever expected it to be, and it has all the accessories that he really needs. The fact that it is translucent is just kind of icing on the cake for me, but that's really what brings it home. It's exactly the kind of thing that I like to have. It's unique, it's different, but it's also really, really functional as an action figure and has all of that NECA sculpt and paint that I would have expected to have gotten with any other figure they make. And at the end of the day, that's really what matters. Not to mention the fact that now that I have this one, I kind of want at least one, maybe two more Dutch figures that are not translucent. So something that looks like him, maybe covered in mud, or just the standard one, or, you know, knowing me, I'll probably end up with 3, 4, 5 of them, but we'll see. Otherwise, though, this guy is definitely really cool, really fun, definitely something to look into. So that's going to do it for this look at the NECA Toys Thermal Vision Dutch figure. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.